Matthew, shut your mouth when you're talking to me. I'll say, Matthew, that talking to you today is very enjoyable. And GEICO could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Matthew, all I want to hear out of you is nothing.
So you were saying about Hawaii. Have you worked here before in the past?
I worked on a show. It was a delightful experience for many reasons. And one of those reasons was the fact of the location. Hawaii, as you know, because you live there, is, I hesitate not at all to say paradise on earth. I came out of the airport feeling braced by this magnificent environment. It's so beautiful there. And spiritually, there's something extraordinary about what's in the air there and what's in the earth. I really enjoyed myself immensely when I was there.
So Michael, then if I were to fly you here to Hawaii, what would be the first thing you would do when you landed?
Okay, and I don't have to necessarily check into a hotel or go to a home, right?
I'm sending you a ticket and for tomorrow, and you can take off and come here, and then what would you like to do when you land?
Take a run
on the beach,
the water. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. After a long flight, I love to have exercise to purge the results of
all the scotch that you drank on the
recycled oxygen experience.
And
right. I had some runs, Matthew, in Hawaii that I absolutely loved. One was in the rain, and I was running through the city on this beautiful promenade that led then to a path that was enclosed by trees. And so you reminded me of that pleasure, and that's probably what generated my answer.
Better to take a run than have the runs when you come to Hawaii.
Indeed, sir. Indeed.
You know, I thought maybe one of the things you were trying to recycle is, you know, the people who come on board the plane who wear too much perfume, and when they walk by you can smell them for the next 10 minutes. I thought maybe that was part of what you needed to get out of your system.
I'll tell you, I do need to get that out of my system whenever that happens. That wasn't what I was referring to, but I empathize with you entirely. I'm very sensitive to scents, and unless it's a very pure, organic cologne or perfume, I can get a headache very easily from it. I feel it's the chemicals. I don't think it's organic essential oils, because those tend not to bother me. What bothers me, I think, is when you're dealing with a cologne or a perfume that's infused with inorganic chemicals and such that cause disruption to at least my sinuses, to the degree that I'll be in pain potentially for some hours after if I don't purge it, as you said.
As I've gotten older, I've become much more sensitive to scents. Back in the day, I used to splash on the cologne and just think the more cologne, the more sexy. But that is definitely not the case.
Yeah, and I think we may have changed over the years, and I think these things do undergo permutations. When I was younger, I would put on cologne every day for a time, and I also, Matthew, would burn scented candles.
Oh, wow.
And with great pleasure. I enjoyed the scent. I would be reading my book, and I was probably drinking at the time, so drinking wine and having a cigarette and reading. And now, if there's a scented candle, again, like with the perfume, I'll get a headache. It needs to be scent-free. I need almost everything to be scent-free.
You know, I think that you and I probably grew up in the generation where everybody had scented candles and they burned incense and then a little bit later the essential oils and so on. I can't handle any of that stuff.
Even if it's essential oils, it bothers you.
It sure does.
Okay.
It sure does.
Okay.
So, yeah, that's interesting that scents can do that to you. They can really turn you off, but they can also bring you back to when you were a little kid. Like, for instance, what's a food scent that brings you back to your childhood?
The bacon, breakfast foods, I would say. Breakfast foods. I love breakfast foods. I don't know if there's one that I don't like. Breakfast meats, eggs, pancakes, waffles. I mean, everything in that category, I feel I'm in. Certain of them I like more than others. But eggs, I would say, for me, if I had to choose a favorite food, or at least one of my favorite foods, would be eggs. I can eat eggs at an alarming volume.
Would that be something that you've already had today? Is that part of what you've eaten already?
No, I'm actually in a phase enjoying the Warriors diet. So I go for many hours without any calories.
Right.
And then I have a big meal. At the end of the day, it's my reward. And that has a bunch of food involved because I've fasted for so long. And to just tell you where that meal is currently, it's about a pound of spinach, 3 slices of cheese, roughly a half a pound of turkey, and crackers with some mayonnaise for some flavor. I put some pepper in. I mix it all up in a big bowl, and I sit down. I watch All in the Family, and I eat.
That is so funny. When I heard you say the warrior diet is something I've heard of, but I was unaware of what it contained. It sounded like maybe it was going to be carnivore heavy, but with the pound of spinach, what is the reason for that? What did your doctor or nutritionist tell you?
This is not doctor recommended, though a doctor would recommend that I have vegetables in my diet, so that's true. And the spinach is about that. The spinach is about getting greens into my diet because for a long time, Matthew, didn't have them. And I wasn't trying necessarily consciously to avoid them, maybe semi-consciously, but I just was, I love meat so much and I love protein so much that I would find myself gravitating to that and not remembering to force myself benevolently to have greens. And now that I'm eating this way, I thought, you know what, why don't I just get some frozen spinach in mass and start dumping it into my meal at night. And so that's what the spinach is about. And you're probably right. The Warriors diet is more, it probably wouldn't in strictest discipline involve the crackers that I involve. It would still involve vegetables. I read that somewhere that it would more keto, like meat and vegetables sans these other carbohydrates like the crackers.
Right, exactly.
I like the flavor of the crackers, and if going forward I want to cut weight even more, I'll just eliminate the crackers, and I'm sure I'll see results from that.
Do you find that you're so much more clear when you're on that kind of a regime?
I am, and I have been, Matthew, on some version of this for many years. Yeah. I'm more focused on it being eating truly only once a day with no calories in between now than I've ever been before. Yep.
So are you any good in the kitchen? Do you cook your meals or does your partner or wife or whatever?
I'm not married, unattached at the moment, though that could change. We'll see going forward. Right now I'm married to my work, really. I have certain goals I want to achieve, and so my focus is very much there. And I do not cook in the sense that I would say acknowledges the greatness of the culinary arts.
Right.
I would say, I cook for necessity. So I prepare my meal at night. And it's not complex. As I say, I dump a bunch of food together, I make it warm, and I eat it. I appreciate people who cook. My mother is a marvelous cook, and I love eating her cooking. I love eating the cooking of anyone who's good at it. I love eating, though, Matthew. So even if the cooking isn't so good, but the food is right, I'm in.
Oh, that's so funny. You know, it's great that you're paying really close attention to your health through food, because really that's the biggest drug we take is the food that we ingest, right? And I can go all day talking about autophagy and all the various things and the benefits of keto and anti-inflammation and all that stuff. So it sounds like you're right on board with that.
I am, and I'm so blessed. I do feel that it was the Lord's guidance. I have been conscious of this on some level to this time, though I more recently received a message that look further into this. And I always give credit to divine guidance there because I pray for that. I pray for the clarity to make the best decisions for my life and those in my life on a regular basis. So when I get these messages, I do feel that the Lord is speaking to me.
Have you always been kind of a spiritual being or someone who pays attention to that side of the world?
I would say that I've always been, because I do believe that fundamentally I am. And I think that whether someone practices it or not, I think we all are fundamentally spiritual. I believe we all are spirit. And we have different ways of practicing and different ways of receiving messages and different ways of experiencing the spirituality. I was raised in a Catholic household, and I do not practice in the context of any organized religion. For me, it doesn't remain productive if that's how I'm enjoying my connection with the Lord. I feel that for me personally, it interferes with that connection. Even though the Catholic faith has instructed a lot of my practice, I feel that an individual relationship with the Lord is necessary for me that benefits from different faiths and different practices, and also shares with other people in a way that doesn't create boundaries. So I don't want anything between me and you. I don't want anything between me and anyone else who practices differently. I want an open channel to the Lord and an open channel to everyone who I come in contact with. And this is how I operate in that way.
Young lady who introduced us, Elizabeth Hamilton Guarino, you and her are really, really good friends. She is a wonderful author, and she's into the whole spiritual movement and all these great peaceful and successful kind of energies. Is that someone that you kind of focus on as far as being a little bit of a guide?
I wouldn't say we've shared that relationship. I feel that we've talked about it. I know we've talked about it, though I actually have mentioned my relationship with the Lord with her. It was something where she recognized the fact that I was unapologetic about it and open about it and not afraid to invoke that language and that relationship in my life in a way that I think made her feel more relaxed about doing it. So I think without speaking for her, I think that she might recognize that not everyone enjoys when someone uses a word like God or Lord or talks about prayer, etc. And while I'm respectful of everyone's viewpoint, I know that my relationship with the Lord has no boundaries to other people.
Do you think in any way, Michael, that perhaps religion being such a hot topic has kind of morphed over to being able to speak about spiritual values and understanding as a proxy for religion? So people are really open to speaking about spirituality, maybe not so open to talking about religion because it is a hot button. Do you think they're kind of like maybe one and the same?
I think that they can be. I hesitate to make a determination because I don't know how their practice is. I don't know if they believe that there's one source of energy, if there's one source of love that we're all individual expressions of, or if they believe something different, or if, like me, they have to acknowledge there's no way for us to know fundamentally without any question what it is. I will say that what I think happens with religion, in my experience, and the reason why organized religion has not been productive for me, even though it's been instructive, I've learned from organized religions, definitely. The reason it doesn't remain productive for me in practice is because of dogma, is because of things that demand you think a certain way, believe a certain way, act a certain way, exclude others in a certain way if they don't believe a certain way, etc. This is the type of thing that I found in organized religion that doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't resonate with me with a message from God. It doesn't resonate with me with a message of love, which is the same for me, because the Lord and love are one. And I think that you and I are one. I think we're all connected in this beautiful mosaic of power and love and grace. And organized religion can create boundaries that aren't helpful to me in conversations with you or with anyone. I want someone to know that if they come to me, I love them as long as they're not harming other people. And I still put love in those areas, but that is something where I do feel that's a righteous distinction. If someone's creating harm for someone else, I can't respond to that in a way that is supportive. I will respond to it positively, but that might mean that positive response might be me getting involved to stop that harm.
Let's you and I work it out for the entire universe right now since we're here together. We have a couple things to discuss.
Yeah, man.
Religion at its best, at its core, was all about love your neighbor, be helpful, don't hurt anybody, all those great things. If that's the case, Michael, then why is it that it appears that the lion's share of conflicts begin with my God being better than your God, and we're going to end up fighting over that, instead of us just saying, your God is as good as mine, and we're good, and let's go have a beer?
I believe, Matthew, it has to do with the human propensity at times, because not everyone has it, but the human propensity at times for any of us to want answers and to also want to be a part of a group and to feel like we know something that we can't possibly know. Because it can be scary for some to live in a world that is literally floating in space, rotating at 1,000 miles an hour, and rotating around a ball of fire at 67,000 miles an hour. Those are scientific facts. And when people think about that and they realize that I have to acknowledge that I really don't know what this situation is, I think that they want to latch on to things sometimes that are not divine, but they're human. It's a human understanding that my God is different than your God, frankly. It might translate different for you. It might be a communication that's different, but my understanding of it and what the Lord's putting in my heart is that it's the same. That we're brothers, man. And we're children of the divine, and we're one, we're a family. And if you're a family, there might be tensions in the family at times. We all know that. But there's also ongoing desire to resolve if you're coming from a place of love. And so what I think religion can be an expression of is the human desire to answer for something and to say that there's an answer to something when there isn't.
I think we've utilized our quota for religious talk for the entire year of 2026.
I'm here to talk about whatever you want to talk about.
So people are looking at you right now, and they're going, I know that guy. Where do I know that guy from? And then they go, maybe it was Brothers McMullen back in the 90s, or maybe that's the GEICO guy talking to Matthew about religion and stuff. What do you think they're thinking about when they see you being in that reveal mode instead of in the actor role mode?
I would think that they're seeing someone authentically expressing their love of life. Because that's what all this is. I love being here with you. I love God. I love people. I love my life. I love what I do for a living. I've been so blessed, Matthew. And so what I would imagine they're seeing is an authentically joyful experience of life. If they're seeing something else, then I can't account for why, but that's not what's happening.
Right. Do me a favor. Would you say your iconic line from the famous movie, The Brothers McMullen, to me? You know what I'm referring to, right?
I think I do, but I...
Say it in character, too. That kind of tough, angry guy.
Okay, well, yeah, but I want to be sure that I know the line that you're talking about.
There's actually two lines.
Okay.
There are two lines that you are, I think, well known for.
Oh my goodness!
Now, what am I thinking of?
You're thinking of when the brothers are all together at the end of the movie, and they're reciting things that their father said to them when they were growing up. And I'm so happy that those are some of your favorite lines.
Oh yeah.
I'm so happy because, Matthew, bird's eye view into my life, two of those lines were from my past as a kid.
Oh, your dad.
Yes, when we were making Brothers McMullen, before we were shooting, Eddie came to us and said, I need help ending this film. I'm thinking maybe we're together talking about our dad. Do you guys have stories? Da, 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 da. And I shared two things that my father said to me and my brothers growing up, or at least me and my brother Joe. Patrick, my youngest the youngest of us may have heard these too, but I know me and my brother Joe heard them, and they're the lines that you like so much. So one is, now you want me to do it the way that I did it in the movie, yeah?
Yeah, except that maybe you could put my name at the front part of that line so it looks like you're saying that to me.
You want both of the lines from, okay, because one of them I say and one of them the other brother says. So
okay, right.
One is, Matthew, shut your mouth when you're talking to me. That's one of them. And then the other is, Matthew, all I want to hear out of you is nothing.
Perfect, man. I could definitely see Daddy saying that originally. My dad used to say, I'll split your head wide open.
Oh, man. That's a comment. That's definitely a comment. And was he being hyperbolic, or was he a physical person? Would he actually put his hands on you?
He was violent through words, never actions.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you were spared physical violence.
And I was much faster than him back then anyway.
Oh, my goodness. But that's a very serious comment, because that is definitely verbally violent.
But it became a hilarious thing to my sister and myself, because that's how he would vent, is by saying that.
Right, yeah. And I'll tell you, it's a wonderful example of the benefit of laughing at life and laughing at yourself and other people, when it's not, of course, meant in some harsh, negative way. Because I think about even things that were harsher than what you and I are talking about from my past. Yeah. And then when you're older and you look at it through a different lens, with peace in your heart and love in your heart, you can see that some of these things are very funny.
Oh, yeah.
Very, very funny.
He was so passionate, Michael. I mean, he would say when we'd go to a buffet as the family, he would gather us around. He'd say, kids, come on, gather around. I want you to put them out of business. And that's what he would tell us. It's like, eat all the expensive stuff, skip the salad, skip the bread, skip the rice and the starch, and go straight for the shrimp and the prime rib. And that's like that same kind of passion.
That is hysterical. What a character. What a personality. Now, that indicates something of a foodie in him. Would you say that your dad and you share this Gowerman's energy and this love of food?
I think we share the love of food with everybody. Everybody loves food, but it's maybe not the same food, right? So you dig your spinach and your turkey the same way that somebody digs their salmon and, their potatoes. So I never take that away from anybody, even if they don't kind of like fulfill my needs as a foodie gourmet or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say that I think that there are people who eat because they want to survive, and maybe they do enjoy the food, but I've known people literally who don't eat for enjoyment. They eat for nourishment only. And so that's why I wanted to isolate if your dad's enthusiasm for food was something you feel you shared with. I think that most people actually are in the camp where you think they are, which is enjoyment of food. But I think there are people who don't necessarily eat for enjoyment.
Oh, yeah. No, the eating to live thing just doesn't make sense to me.
That doesn't resonate with you at all.
No, not at all. No, it couldn't, not with my background, but I get it. And I've known people like that.
But your dad and his enthusiasm for food, though, would you say that you're a match for each other in that way, or is it different?
Enthusiasm-wise, probably very well matched.
Okay.
But skill-wise, maybe not, or talent-wise, or understanding, or knowledge, and all that, all the periphery understandings, he and I were not equals.
I understand. Are you you're a culinary expert, would you say?
Well, I went to school at Cordon Bleu in London, and I've been feeding and cooking for people in your industry forever. Eagles, Pink Floyd, Heather Locklear, Robin Williams. So, I grew up in the LA area before moving to Hawaii, and that's kind of what I did.
Wow, that definitely qualifies as culinary expert. That is wonderful. You must have a bunch of stories.
I do. And I think maybe the statute of limitations has run out. Maybe I can share a few one day.
Oh, yeah. Well said, brother. That is hysterical and great. Ready to hear those stories?
Now that you gave us a little sample of those famous lines from your movies and so on, your voice has become something that's very, very popular inside of people's heads. And so that being the GEICO commercials really kind of put your voice on the map, did it not?
Mm-hmm. Well, it put my voice on the map with the general public in a very noticeable way. But up to that point, Matthew, I had been doing voiceovers for many years. And I had been in the practice of using my voice to a very happy degree on a regular basis. It enabled me to share my love of making different sounds with my voice with many more people. So that's where you're absolutely correct. While I had there was awareness of me as someone who used his voice regularly, professionally, it exploded then with the GEICO campaign. And and I still love using that voice.
Do you have to practice to get into that voice, or is it just something that you can just whip out?
Do you want to hear it now?
Yeah. Say something in your famous voice.
Okay. Well, I'll say, Matthew, that talking to you today is very enjoyable, and GEICO could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Wow. Amazing. What a great agency who put that together and nailed you for that role.
Yeah.
Know?
I'll give credit to an agent I was working with at the time named Catherine Ryan. She saw this come up in the breakdowns as a campaign. And at that time, I wasn't really open to doing on-camera commercials. I was having a very fruitful experience in voice work, and I had relatively signed off that area. She came to me with this and she said, I know that you're hesitant at the very least to do an on-camera commercial, but look at this, because this is special and it's a campaign and you're extremely right for it. And when we talk about divine messaging, I believe that message came from the divine. Because I was Matthew, when I looked at the campaign, I knew, I say with confidence that when I looked at the words, I knew almost immediately, if not immediately, the voice that I would put on it, the character that I already had in my rotation. And I thought, that's the guy. That is the guy. Because I had this hard-boiled character who people would recognize from the 50s or the 40s, or Robert Stack, Peter Graves, this old school sound where men talk in a very intentional and serious way. And it's a fabulous way of operating vocally, and they were doing it for real. I do it to invoke, something of a character. And Rod Serling is a good example of it, another one.
Right.
A lot of guys who have this sound. And I love it because the personality is so serious and it's so enjoyable to listen to, I find. So when I put that on it and I go in for the audition, when I walked out, Matthew, I had the rare experience for an actor where you don't have any question that you did your best.
Slam dunk.
Yeah, and whether or not they hired me, this is how seriously I knew that I had delivered. I said, whether or not they hire me bears no reflection on the fact that I did what amounts to my best in that situation. And sometimes you walk out of an audition, you wonder, did I leave something on the table? Is this, that, and the other? I felt like I left nothing on the table. And as it turns out, they did call me back. I worked with the director, and then I got the job. And so...
Wow. Tell me about the swagger that you put into that character, the way you kind of come onto the camera and all that. Was that discussed, or was that just... did they say, Michael, do it for us?
That was the way it was written. They had it written that the guy would walk into the frame, or rather, I think it was that I was in frame and then I would turn. So when the commercial begins, I think it snaps to the cut just as I'm turning. And if I remember how it plays out, do you think that's about accurate?
I do. I think that's very accurate. It was kind of an interesting kind of swagger, like almost... I see a little bit of John Wayne, kind of like that Maybe a little bit of a alcohol-fueled kind of swag.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, hyper-masculine, very serious, taking himself very seriously. Not a guy probably you want to push buttons on. But
Right.
for me, all of that, even though that's extremely serious, in my heart, Matthew, as I'm doing it, I'm enjoying myself immensely. Playing that character is so much fun, and you're right. All that swagger is a part of it because he is so serious. And Wayne was so serious. You know, this hyper masculinity and also that personality from the 40s and 50s. That was a regular guy to a large extent. That's how people, at least if they didn't speak that way as much in common society, still it was not probably far from that. Because those guys on camera, they didn't come out of nowhere. They came out of society. And that's what was happening right there. That male with that voice that speaks in a way that's very, very serious. That was a part of the male personality at that time for a lot of people.
Now I can take a look at those spots and I can definitely see the satirical aspect of it. And nothing has changed in all those years except society and culture. But still, I can look at it and I can get a little gentle smile.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
You know?
And for me, it would be even greater revelment because if it's happening, that means that I'm getting another paycheck. So
that's right.
That's terrific.
How long was that campaign?
What's that, man?
How long was that campaign?
They started with, I don't know if they knew how many spots they were going to do initially. I know that, or rather, the number of spots that we did and the number that we did in the first run, I don't know if that was coinciding. But I do know that they originally hired me for 6. I think, Matthew, what may have happened, I'm not speaking as an expert on this because I don't know, but I know that I got hired for 6, and then they ran, I believe, and I think they were seeing how they performed. So they knew it was good enough for 6, because these things are not cheap. And then they put the 6 out there, and I think it did very well for them because then they came back for another 7.
Okay.
And then they put those out there. And I think those did very well because they came back for another 7. So we did in total 20. But I think that what happened was they had 6, they shot 6, they proliferated 6, then they made 7 more because it worked. Then they made 7 more because it worked.
And they were broadcast over a number of years, were they not?
Yeah, I don't know. Number of years, I don't know if it's more than 2, frankly.
Okay.
So a number of years for me would extend maybe to 3, even though 2 is a number.
The writers were really good. One of those still cracks my ass up, and it's the Abraham Lincoln GEICO spot that you did. It's just so funny. I can just look at that just to get a laugh when I'm feeling down.
Oh, it's so good. It's so every single one of them I loved. I loved every single one of them. And people, and testament to how good they all are, people have different favorites.
Right.
Like you're talking about Abraham Lincoln. Other people talk about the piggy. And then there I think there's another favorite perhaps with the woodchucks. So I think people have different favorites because there's so much goodness in all of it. It's just such a great campaign, man. I'm so blessed to have been able to do that, Matthew.
Absolutely. Well, let's cut to what you're doing right now. Are you playing music? Are you writing poetry? Are you acting? What's going on?
Poetry is infrequent, but I will sometimes, when there's a flash of inspiration, write a poem. More of my writing, Matthew, right now is in my books and my screenplays and my television writing as well. I write for the screen, both large and small, and meaning feature and television, because they call TV the small screen. And I love to be at work on a project, regardless of its destiny, because you don't know, at least in my experience, what's going to happen with what. And so right now, we're looking to set up certain feature projects of mine and television projects of mine. So that is ongoing work that's happening. I'm looking, frankly, to get my next job on camera. So prayerful of seizing that opportunity when it presents itself.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, thank you. And grinding, brother. Hustling and grinding. I will say that right now, my work is getting work. That's
fantastic.
my job right now. My job right now is getting a job.
I hear you.
Yeah.
And I know that COVID kind of messed up the whole industry, and we're now 6 years out, and it still hasn't fully recovered, has it?
I would say that that's true because it was changed perhaps immutably to something different. And I don't know if it will ever come back the way that it was. And frankly, I don't need it to, because all I want is for it to function in a way that's healthy and good and unafraid.
Right, something that's going to help drive your creativity.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, certain things that interfered with people working in the way that the global health crisis did, whether you were an actor or a culinary expert, everybody was out of a job, or at least most people were.
Yeah.
And I did have to sharpen certain things in my life that maybe I wouldn't have been forced benevolently to sharpen unless I didn't have a way to make a living. Mm-hmm. So I got to work in a way, Matthew, that maybe I wouldn't have gotten to work if things were different. Then there was the strike. So there's something that precludes us from work, another thing that precludes us from work. And I had to get very creative about how I was going to do things. And there were a bunch of different permutations for me that happened that always consider positive, because that's my faith. My faith is whatever is happening in my life is for a positive purpose. Whether I know what that positive purpose is immediately or not, I need to engage it positively, because that's the only way that I can stay in productivity with my life.
That's your lane, so you stick with it, and it's much easier to deal with where you're at than to be thinking about coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah. And also I find that putting negative energy on things, complaining about things, sitting in dark energy, it only interferes with my quality of life. Mm-hmm. It only interferes with my productivity. And it only interferes with my ability to see how I can make something work that doesn't appear to offer me that idea at the outset. I have to get more creative. I have to challenge myself mentally. How am I going to make this work? How am I going to be positive? How is this going to be good for myself and the people in my life? And for me, it's extremely nourishing. And it's a great workout in a positive way, because you're constantly challenged.
In our lifetime, we saw when the big screen was all that there was. And a lot of Hollywood actors and people in the industry were of the thought that if you're not appearing in film, movies and so on, they don't want to be on television. Now it's kind of flip-flop. We're in a new generation now to where TV is getting so much attention and so much talent is being driven there. Mm-hmm. What do you think that was all about, that transition? Because we now seem to be more TV heavy than film heavy in this day and age.
I think it was a few reasons. One was the fact that there tended to be an interpretation, at least, and sometimes even a truth to the interpretation, that more highly executed work was being done for the large screen. And that television was with no disrespect I'm saying any of this, was of a lesser grade, because they weren't as dedicated to making it an artistic work as they were a ratings relevant success. Whether or not that was true for everyone working in these areas, I think it was true in terms of how it was seen and how certain people were working in those areas. So film was the highest prize, and where the work, generally speaking, that had more of an artistic merit was being done. And now I feel that it is equal. When you look at shows like Sopranos, and you look at shows, even All in the Family, and this is before the zeitgeist change that you're talking about, Matthew.
Yeah.
But if you look at All in the Family and you look at Sopranos, you cannot say that these are two of the greatest creations in the history of large and small screen production.
Right.
And then when you also look today at so much content, Matthew, that is so highly executed, and some of it is better than films that are being put out.
You bet.
And again, I say that with no disrespect. I just how I see it. And you see these shows where the writing is so good, the acting is so good, the production is so good, it's so advanced, it's so sophisticated. I don't know what the prime mover was for that to happen, but I do know that shows like Sopranos were a part of it, at the very least, if not a prime mover. Where you look at shows like Sopranos and The Wire, which is another show early on in the phase that you're talking about, where you see great shows that are competitive in terms of how they reach people and how they're written with the greatest films that are out there. And I think that people started seeing that for whatever reason, that work that's normally associated with film was being done in TV. So I think then more people started doing it. I would say that that's probably one of the things that happened.
From a writer's perspective, I take a look at shows like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul and The Bear, shows like that, which are immense pieces of work because a film, a movie, you're talking about 90 pages of content to make a movie, right? More or less for a screenplay.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But these shows go on and on and on at that highest level possible.
And thank goodness they do, because I have had such enjoyment knowing that it's not over. When it's that good.
Exactly.
You know, and you're watching Breaking Bad and you know that there are 4 more seasons. It's a gift.
I was late to that party. I ignored that for the longest time and then was able to binge watch all the seasons years after they were gone. Yeah. And just amazing stuff.
I think I was the same. I think I came to that after it reached DVD. I think I watched it on DVD. I think my first experience with it was on DVD. And I didn't watch it just once. I didn't watch it back to back twice, but I've seen that full show at least twice, maybe 3 times. And Sopranos?
Amazing.
I've probably seen more than 5 times.
Yeah.
In 4 or 5 times in its entirety.
Are there any words that stick with you from the Soprano series because that was just so character friendly? Anything that really kind of comes to mind? Because for me, it's like when they talk about the food, and of course that's going to stick with me. Right. When they say gabagool, they talk about the various different Italian foods and so on.
Yeah, well, the Italians have such a magnificent way of expressing themselves through food and language. The Italian language, in the way that it's spoken, has something delicious about it itself. It's as if you're both ingesting the words by how you're saying them, and the listener is also ingesting the words because they're so beautifully spoken. And there's such lyricism in how these things, el pastino, hey, man, such personality. There's personality in the way you speak it. And it's something that is expressive of enthusiasm and greatness that I think in a more poetic way, because it's not literal food, but it's something that you can ingest in an emotional way. And I think that when you look at the fact that Italian cuisine is so shot full with greatness, it's not surprising that they would have such relish in how they speak. And how sensual they are with how they speak, with the hand movements and the body. That with certain Italians, everything's involved with how they're talking to you and such. So when you talk about how they talk, the gabagool, it's as if how much they love the gabagool is in how they're saying it. It probably is. And
how could you not love a country that gave birth to people like Sophia Loren and Gina Lollobrigida? Come on.
Oh my goodness. And Federico Fellini, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo. I mean, the list is ponderous. And we'll go back to Sophia Loren, though, because you're right. She's top of the heap. I will say that while I love how the language is spoken with the food, for me as an actor, delivery of certain lines as an actor probably resonate with me the way that the gabagool resonates with you. So the way Tony delivers with James Gandolfini and his peerless performance as Tony Soprano, the way he would speak, I'll give you one example. He was in one of the therapy sessions and simple line, throwaway. He threw it away, but it's not a throwaway for you. For you, it stays for a lifetime. And it's this: she asks him how things are. And this is what he says. He looks down, I think he flicks his nose, and he says, back at work. And everything that means. For him, it's a throwaway, and he just flicks his nose and back at work. But we know
their
what
relationship
that
was
means.
amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's remarkable because for someone who doesn't know just how profoundly gifted that man was and how profoundly shot through with greatness that show is, though it's pretty hard not to be aware of those things. But you don't even have to be aware of how great it is to enjoy the greatness of it. And that's probably the highest testament to its greatness, is that you don't have to have any expertise about making a television show, acting, writing, anything, to enjoy that show, because that's how good it is.
Right. I wanted to ask you a little bit about how you have been able to survive in an industry that has changed so much. We only covered a little bit of it in the last little while here, but now we've got AI and we've got verticals kind of coming into the mix as far as entertainment and no attention span when it comes to the public at large. How does that work for people who are in the business of creating content, the way that you are?
I acknowledge the challenges in the way that I acknowledge the challenges in other areas of my life. It's the way it is, and I have to navigate it in a way where I remain productive. Sometimes that is in this very benevolent way, forcing me into a adaptation of how I work and how I create. Sometimes it doesn't, though, Matthew. Sometimes it creates an energy where, no, you got to dig your feet in and say, no, this is the way I'm going to do it, and I'm committed to this, and I'm not just going to say, oh, you're doing it differently, so I'm going to do it your way, unless I've really decided that, okay, that is wisdom, that I'm guided to do that. Because I don't think that AI is going to replace things to a degree that the artistry of writing and in so many different ways, and the artistry of filmmaking is just going to be wiped out. I just don't feel that. I'm not a doomsday person. You've probably already recognized that. So I'm not a black pillar. I don't look at things in the future and say, oh, it's horrible. I look at it and say, yeah, there are going to be challenges, and throughout history we've had challenges, and I'm going to meet them with positivity, period, done. And how I am with it, though, is I would say adaptive to what I think is the most wise way to go about it. People are still making television shows in the standard sense, though, Matthew. People are still making movies in the standard sense. And that's going to be assisted by AI and greater technology. And maybe there are going to be certain jobs that are replaced by AI. But I don't think there's going to be any eradication of humanity to these things for a few reasons. One is, I think human beings still want to see human beings. And
I agree with you there.
human beings still want to know that human beings are creating what they're looking at. I'm one of those people, and maybe you are too, where if someone said this book was written by AI, I don't know that I would read it.
It's a little bit of a pet peeve for me too, but when you think about how AI is created, they're taking works, artistic and otherwise, from all of time, and they're creating the AI models to be able to kind of mimic or translate that into current stuff. Yeah. There's no way to really know what you're seeing now, present day, that isn't assisted in some way by AI, right?
Yeah, and that's if people are not being truthful about it too. That is, I think, possibly a part of it, because in the literary world, based on my recent experience, I don't see an embrace of this. Agents will have a question on submission posts where, was any part of this created by AI? And I don't know where that's coming from, but I suspect it's coming from a place that they reject anything that is going to be created, quote unquote, artificially.
Sure.
So I think that there is a bulwark against it becoming the mainstream.
Yeah, I hope that works, because as far as the exponential growth goes of AI, what it's able to create and develop so quickly in a heartbeat, it's just amazing how much progress it's made in just the short few years that it's been around. Yeah,
and the fact that people can make money off it is very threatening. And I don't say that with any doomsday attitude. I just mean that that's a condition of the human aspiration that we have to acknowledge. When people see they can make money it changes values sometimes. So
Oh, yeah.
if they can make money and more money potentially without hiring a writer, then some people are going to just throw a value out the window if they had the value to begin with, Matthew. You know?
Exactly.
So
one of my ways of fighting against the whole AI world is doing this, getting to speak to wonderful people like you.
Thank you.
This can't be replaced by AI, nor can the fact that how much I love to cook for people like you or guests or friends and so on. You can't replace that either. So the more AI is coming into our world, the more human, the more high touch I want to be on a daily basis.
That is so beautifully said, Matthew. And that's a great example of what we were talking about before, what I was talking about before, where whatever is happening, make your adaptation or your change or your response to it positive. And what you just said was unremittingly in positive response to something that could possibly have a negative effect. And it's
Right.
beautiful what you just said. And it's true. You can't replace this conversation. You can't. AI can mimic it, but there's a living, breathing heart here, there's a living, breathing heart there, and that will always make a difference.
Michael, time to turn the tables. I've been torturing you with my questions for this past hour.
Not a torture, brother. Loved it.
Now it's a chance for you to be the host, and you can ask me any questions that might be coming to mind or that you have had and you've never asked anybody before, especially a host on a podcast. So I'm all yours.
Oh, well, thank you, brother. I want to know I know you said you can't share certain of the stories, but I'd like to know something about the experience of cooking for Pink Floyd and working in that world. And I'd just like to know more about you, frankly.
I traveled with the Eagles on their Hotel California
Oh, my
tour.
goodness. Wow.
Back when you were probably 8 years old. But that was in 1976. And my friends across the street said to me, "Hey, Matt, would you like to travel with the Eagles?" And I said, "I'll have to ask my parents," because I was like still in high school. And I'll have to ask my folks. And they said, "Sure, go have a life, enjoy yourself." And so I went out before graduating high school with the Eagles, doing merchandising for them all around the country. Yeah. And then one thing led to another. And I ended up during those years with them also working with Fleetwood Mac and Pink Floyd and ZZ Top and Supertramp and all the bands of the day. And then I eventually went to London and went to school because I was an old man by the time the rock and roll thing burned out. I was probably like 18, 19. And I said, what am I going to do? So I decided maybe I should go become a formalized chef. So I went to London, was there for a couple of years and became the chef, and then ended up coming back to LA, hiring an agent who handles domestics and telling that person, find me some work cooking for some, names and people. And so that's how I started cooking for the bands that I had been traveling with prior. And then people like Heather Locklear and Robin Williams and Dan Aykroyd and his lovely wife, Donna. And, all the people who kind of in your periphery, in your world, right?
My friend, that is magnificent.
Those are the days I'll never remember.
What, there are some days you won't ever remember?
Those are the days I'll never remember.
I have those too, though for me, they're more to do with my abuse of alcohol, which I've been now spared of for over 20 years. And
good for you. Is that an AA thing?
I will say this. I acknowledge AA as a magnificent program that has helped many, many people. I do not practice in AA. Mm-hmm. I've learned from it. I know many people who've been very productive there. I know it's been very, very good for many, many people.
Right.
Like my relationship with the Lord, I prefer my situation with sobriety to be more individual and less a part of an organization.
Sure.
While at the same time, I have benefited from organizations. And there's so much good in AA. There's so much good. And what Bill W. and Dr. Bob created is not just about being sober. It's about having a spiritually, fundamentally positive life. Mm-hmm. And also, Bill W. has said that this is not the only way to get sober. And while I do not advance the idea that anyone remove themselves from AA or don't explore AA, I do believe that when Bill W. said that, he was talking about the fact that if there's something here that that doesn't resonate, or there's another way for you to do it, I want you to be open to that too. There's not only one way to the mountaintop. So I acknowledge it as a magnificent gift. And at the same time, I operate in my sobriety in a way that is not within that organization.
Sure. Now, there are effective methodologies in every realm or every walk of life. So you did it on your own. Was it that much more difficult? Was it easier for you to handle and maintain that?
Again, with compliment and thanks to AA, I didn't do it entirely without the messaging from AA and the positive philosophies of AA. Mm-hmm. My mother went through the program. That's how she got sober. And she's over 50 years sober. So my awareness of the program and the principles and what Bill W. and Dr. Bob created was somewhat substantial by the time I got sober. I would say that the way that it operated in certain meetings is more why I veered away than the fundamental principles. Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example. I don't call myself an alcoholic. I believe that my nature is excessive. My nature is naturally tending toward addiction. Though while I'm not ingesting alcohol, I can't consider myself in some kind of functioning practice of alcoholism. And so it doesn't resonate as truthful for me to say I'm an alcoholic. And also because I feel that my nature is something, Matthew, that has positive and negative expressions. I'm an excessive person. I'm an abundant person. And I say all this with positivity. The same thing that wants to kill itself with a fifth of alcohol can write a book in 21 days. And I don't say that with arrogance. I mean that I've written a book within about 3 to 4 weeks. A first draft. It underwent great revision. But that's sure. My nature. My nature is and the practice for me is to remain positive and channel my abundant nature in pro-life ways, not pro-death ways. And alcohol.
When did you embrace that outlook and that style of life?
I would say that it was probably around the time that I got sober successfully, because I tried 3 times. Mm-hmm. The third time was the winner. And for me, again, this is for me personally. For me, it was the winner, I believe, because I finally allowed the Lord to be a part of it. I finally allowed myself to be humble in the fact of needing help and allowing the Lord to guide me in it. And allowing myself to acknowledge that my mother is in it. Love is in it. I'm not alone. I don't have to do this in some egotistically fueled way of saying I'm doing it and I'm strong and I'm not a loser. You need help. You need the Lord. You need your mom. You need love in your life. And stop hurting yourself. So that was the linchpin for me. Then I realized that as that's unfolding, Matthew, that there was the reason that saying I'm an alcoholic didn't resonate with me is because it didn't feel positive. It didn't feel truthful. What felt positive was acknowledging that I do, if I allow myself to express myself negatively, have the capacity to hurt myself and to hurt other people.
Yeah, that's a very interesting nuance, Michael, when you meet somebody who's in the program and they describe or define themselves as an alcoholic as if it exists to this day. So I'm not here to fight that. I'm just saying it's interesting to the brain when you hear someone present themselves as that. Yeah. And I've just never really understood it. But if it's working, then great.
That's exactly how I feel. And my mother, it worked for her for many years. Many years. And
I just got to say, you're so lucky to have your mom.
Oh, Matthew, that's a whole other podcast we could have, me talking about how much I love her. And I still would not have exhausted all the ways to express it. She is the primary gift in this life. And I say that with full acknowledgement of her being a gift from God. And she and I were, because she's been a leader for me spiritually in many ways. When you talk about a guide to my relationship with the Lord, that's who I would talk about. My mother's been the greatest example of love in my life, bar none. And I am so thankful because she has led me to my relationship with the Lord. She's led me to my sobriety. My father deserves some acknowledgement there too, because when I was growing up, he also was sober. He didn't stay sober, but when I was growing up, he was sober. And so he was an example of that when I was growing up. And then later things were different for him. I say that with no dishonor, but different things changed for him. With my mother, it was consistent though. Though presently, she doesn't necessarily have the same relationship to AA that she did. So perhaps there are permutations in that for people too, where it fuels them and helps them and is productive for them for a time, and then something else happens. And I think we need to be fluid with people, because if my way works for somebody, if I were to say, this is how I got sober and this works for somebody, then terrific, I support that. And then if my way didn't work for them, I support that, because what I want is for it to work for you. So if someone's in the program and they say it works for them, I don't want to interfere at all. I want to support that, and I do support that. What I find in AA sometimes is that there's an idea that if you don't do it our way, you're not doing it the right way, and you might even pick up again. And even if that has good intentions, that's not true. It's just not true that AA is the only way to get sober. And again, I don't say that with any disrespect. I'm saying it based on an experience where I know that there are people who believe there's only one way to do something. And we know people who are archly religious who feel this way, that this is the only way to get to God. This is the only way to do this. This is the only way to do this. And I don't agree with that any more than I do with it being translated anywhere. What was that?
I was going to say, I have several maps that take me to the same destination, but by way of a lot of different routes. And I think that's what you're talking about.
Absolutely, brother. And as long as that passage and that path is not on top of other people and hurting other people, enjoy that path, because that was revealed to you for a reason.
If you see somebody struggling in their life, Michael, are you the type of person who says, hey, Matthew, you really ought to do X, Y, and Z? Or are you the type of person who waits until I ask you, hey, Michael, I'm effing up. I need some help. So generally, who would you be in that scenario if there were those two different players?
If I sense that someone is in conversation with me and it's an open conversation, meaning that there's an implicit invitation for me to share my thoughts, I will gauge how much I will apply it to them, but I will share my thoughts. And I don't even want to say but there. I want to say and. So I don't want to express anything uninvited about anybody's life at any time. And if it does feel to me in a conversation like someone doesn't want to hear my opinion about something, I identify that and I'm not going to share it. If I sense in the conversation that someone is struggling with something that maybe in my life, I have a message where I can share, I've been in that situation and this is what I did, then I find that's a gentle way of letting them know that, hey, if this serves you, great. And I will sometimes, Matthew, if I share something like that, I will say, I'm not mentioning this because I feel you even necessarily need it. I'm saying that it could be of service to you, and if it is, then we can talk more about it. Another aspect of how gently I feel like these types of modalities need to be, because you don't want to spoil an opportunity to help somebody, and you also don't want to make someone feel like you're on a hilltop.
Well, that's the risk. That's the risk we run when we enter into a scenario in which we'd like to share our heart and our mind and our experience with somebody. And if we do the unsolicited advice thing, sometimes that could really jeopardize an opportunity to have that good relationship last.
You're absolutely correct. And that's where I think you have to be careful to identify someone's gauge of openness. If they're truly having a conversation with me, Matthew, where it is clear that anything goes in terms of what I want to share about myself and what they want to share about themselves, I will, if I think it serves them, share something about myself that I think can serve them. But I won't say, this is what I think you should be listening to. This is what I think. I'll just share it. And then if they want to, but if they ask my opinion, I'll give them my opinion. Definitely.
Good.
Because if someone does ask and I truly believe that I can help them, I want to help them. I absolutely want to help them. I want to love them. But even if they ask my opinion, I will say, and if this serves you, I love that. And if you feel like it doesn't serve you, I no less love that, because you need to make the choices and ingest the information that is right for you. And I love conversations like that, Matthew, because they're absolutely real. Not that it's not real when people aren't in difficulty, because you and I aren't necessarily in difficulty right now, and this is real, and this is great, and I love it. When people open up their heart to other people, which we're doing too, where we can show our desire to help each other, that's what I believe is the purpose of this.
Right, right. Do you have a best friend?
My mom.
Yeah, okay.
My mom.
Right.
If you reach the level of my mom, you're just an incredible human being. There are people who, because of how much I love them, they express things that make me feel the type of love I have for my mom for them. So there's no question about it. And I love, Matthew. I love the people in my life, and I let them know it.
Are you close to your mom as far as distance?
Physical distance, no. She lives across the country in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So you're always on the phone with her then?
I am, yeah, every day. And unless she's visiting with family or there's something going on for her that makes it inconvenient for her to be on the phone, if all things are equal in her life, we speak every day. And Matthew...
Do you call her Ma? Do you call your mom Ma?
I don't.
Mom,
I say Mom.
Mom.
Mom. And then sometimes when I'm not speaking to her and I'm talking about her, it will be between mom and mother based on whatever the reverence of the invocation calls for. But I call my mom, Mom.
Great. I want you to melt into the Michael and Mom conversational standpoint now. And I want you to tell her, because later on she's going to ask you, Michael, what was it like hanging out with Matthew on 50 Tastes of Grey? I want you to tell her, the truth about why she might want to watch this episode of you and me doing this.
Mom, had this wonderful conversation with a man who's a culinary expert. He's cooked for rock bands that you would recognize, even though you're not necessarily a rock and roll fan. And he's a generous and lovely and positive, loving person. And he welcomed me to share my heart and my life and my careers and my relationships and myself in toto. And we had this wonderful conversation where I was so happy to be receiving his questions and asking him questions and hearing about his life and his dad. And we had the most wonderful time. And he's a delightful human being, and his show is delightful.
Thank you so much. It was very, very kind. And I hope that Mom listened to us and watches us.
My
and
mom
listens
will.
To us.
My mom will. Definitely.
Will she?
Yeah.
Is she your number one fan?
Yes.
What's her name?
Jean McGlone. And speaking of names, my nickname for her is Jean the Bean.
Jean the Bean.
Yes.
Where did that come from? What's the origin of that? It came
from my Greensboro, North Carolina cousin's dad, my Uncle Chester. And he identified that this adorable nickname was right for her. And as with nicknames, you might recognize this. Sometimes you can't express why it works, but you know it does. Mm-hmm. So he started calling her Jean the Bean years and years and years ago. Later in my life, I became aware that was a nickname he had for her, and I realized how appropriate it was because it was so adorable. So I now call her Jean the Bean sometimes. And certain dear friends of mine also will sometimes invoke that and say, how's Jean the Bean? And she loves it, always makes her smile and laugh, and it's cute.
That's great. Did you ever have a nickname?
Yeah, I actually have a few running at the moment. My dad, I'll tell you one that he gave me when I was younger, and this is akin to when your dad would say, I'm going to split your head open, where something that in the moment it's maybe not funny, but later in life it's funny. When I was younger, I sometimes was a little heavier, and my dad at one point called me Meat Wagon.
So sweet.
So at the moment, probably punctured my psyche, but in retrospect, I think it's hysterical.
Oh, yeah, that builds character. Having our psyche punctured, it's like getting turned down or rejected by girls when you're in junior high and high school. It's like actually builds a tough skin to where you're better at it later.
It definitely, it can do that. And then maybe it's also something where it's a positive motivation for me to stay as fit as I am now. It's possible it has that byproduct as well. And another nickname for me is the Gun, Matthew, because I created a character called Kenny the Gun, and people identify me with that character so much that they will sometimes refer to me as the Gun.
Who was Kenny the Gun?
Kenny the Gun is actually a television character that I created, and then I actually expressed him in a one-man show in New York and Los Angeles, and he's a character actually that is at the center of a project that we're looking to launch presently. So that's who Kenny the Gun is.
Well, it's very cool that you've had such a great long career and it continues. I think that's fantastic.
Thank you, Matthew, and I appreciate your support. I look forward, as I told you, to getting my next job, and I would look forward to celebrating your ongoing success as well. And I know it will be profound because you're a wonderful person, and this is a wonderful format, and you're doing a wonderful job.
Oh, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Why don't you now say aloha to everybody?
Aloha, everybody.
Thanks for joining me, Michael. It was really a great day.
So welcome, and thank you, Matthew. I've thoroughly enjoyed this.
Thanks.
Thank you, brother.